So, welcome, Daniel, to the Heart Centered Life podcast. And I'm so glad that we got connected. And I am pleased to have you spend time with us. And I want to say thank you for your energy and being here with us on this Thursday morning.
As I told you the first time we spoke, it is such an honor for me to have met you. It's such an honor for me to be on your show. And it's I that thanks you. So let's get going and have fun together.
All right. So I was doing all this research about you, and you have this amazing background that is so different from a lot of us. And I think a lot of my listeners. And I was hoping that you could talk about your journey, what led you to this point.
Yeah. I have had a different background, and sometimes it's made me feel alone and isolated because growing up, I lost my dad when I was 13. He died of a heart attack. Actually, he died making love to my mom on a heart attack. And 2 years later, my mom died of a broken heart. That came in the form of breast cancer. But 2 years later, on the exact same day, July 4th, my mom passed as well. And so as a 15-year-old boy, I was left alone. I had an older brother, but we were left alone. And part of what happened for me is I didn't think that I was a part of this world because all my friends had parents. And the things that I was going through as a 15-year-old boy, none of them could relate to. I mean, they could sympathize with me. They were nice people. Their families took me in as if I was their own. But when I said to them, how is this possible? What does this look like? What do I do? None of them could really relate. They could give me advice, but it wasn't advice from within the situation. And so just like in my book, The Mosaic, I asked the adults, where'd my parents go? And they told me they're in this place called heaven, which is a beautiful answer. But I didn't know what heaven was. And I didn't know if it was a store that you go to. I didn't know if it was a church that you belonged to. I didn't know if it was a culture that was found someplace. And so I set out and searched for the place called heaven. My uncle was a household name in America. And they brought me in to live with them because they had the finances, but I didn't know them. They lived in a different city, in a different town. I lived in Philadelphia. They lived in the Midwest. So we grew up not really knowing them. So as a 15-year-old kid, I was plucked from the life that I knew into the home of kind, nice, beautiful people who welcomed me into their home and into their family, and even offered me the chance to start from the bottom and work my way up to the top and take over his business. But I was a stranger in a strange land. And what I was looking for, that wasn't the heaven that I was looking for, even though it would have been the heaven most people look for. That to be given the opportunity to run $1 billion corporation and be trained by the person who founded it and mentored all the way through, 99.99999 and say 9 until the end of time, and the people would have said, where's the broom? Where do I start? And I said, you know something? We don't know each other. I would like to take a year to watch you, to see if who you are is who I want to be at the end of this journey. And although there was a lot of beauty to the things that he was as a person, and a lot of kindness and a lot of generosity, there were things that I saw that I asked him questions a year later that made him and I both understand that wasn't my journey. And so I set out again alone. And it was in the fact that I always saw a world that was different than the friends that I had that I felt isolated and alone. But it was only later, as I grew older, that people started to say, you don't see the world that we see. We want to bring you in to work with our companies or to help our government or to help our family because you see a different world and we want you to help us see things differently. And I thought, wow, okay, so the biggest problem that I ever had now has become the biggest solution. And in all due respect, I became a little bit like, well, nobody sees the world that I see, and I'm special, and this and that, until I realized I don't see the world that they see. And I have an opportunity in the time that we're together to see their world, not just to show them my world. Like, who cares? I already know what my world looks like. What I want to know is what their world looks like. And I never took that opportunity because I thought, oh, they want me to show them how to see a different world. Why didn't I have that same humility to say, I want to see a different world? Show me your world. And when we sat together, something magical happened then, because we were able to share realities and share perspectives. We were looking at the same exact thing. And both of us were seeing things differently. And I believe it's in that place where innovation happens, not when you sit with people who believe and think like you. We all live in like-minded communities, and we all surround ourselves with people who agree with us. We can call them Democrats or Republicans. We can call them wealthy or not wealthy. We can call them Christian or Jewish. We can call them whatever. We can call them military or not military. You know, there's so many silos that we build that make us feel like we're a part of something. But it's when we come out of those silos and we mix with people that are not a part of something, not a part of what we believe, that we start to see the world differently. And we need to see the world differently because the world is not moving in a great place right now. No. We need to find innovative solutions to things that are problems. We have people that are hungry in the United States of America. How is that possible? We're the most affluent country in the world. How's it possible we have people that are homeless? How's it possible we don't have clean drinking water in some of our cities and towns? How's it possible that the people of Flint can't drink water? How's it possible that we have all this turmoil between us that's going on? I mean, that is not the world that I dreamt of giving over to my children.
No, not me either.
Right? And so if we don't take a stand to do something, it will be the world we're doing. And so that's what this book has inspired in me.
So I want to backtrack a little bit, because I don't think we've actually talked about the fact that you wrote the book.
Oh, excuse me. Okay.
so I don't want the audience to get, what is he talking about?
Because, what is that guy talking about?
Yes, because Daniel actually wrote an amazing book. I love it. It's called The Mosaic. And it tells the story of Mo, who actually lost his parents when he was 13 and 15. So Mo is actually Daniel.
Yes.
And so Mo travels, I guess, the world, and not just this world, but kind of like a parallel world.
Yeah.
Looking for heaven, because that's where everyone has told him that that's where his parents are.
Yeah.
And so the Mosaic is an amazing book. It's been likened to the tradition of the alchemist and the Celestine prophecy, which to a great...
What an honor, right?
Yes, exactly.
That anybody would put me in the same sentence, paragraph, page story is such an honor to me.
Right. And so the Mosaic is on Amazon, and I'm going to add the link. So the link to the Mosaic is going to be in the show notes. And that conversation that we just had is kind of like the effect that you hope the Mosaic would have on society and the world. But I did want to backtrack a little bit and get you to talk about the Mosaic some more, because Mo meets a lot of interesting people on the way to heaven, which to me are many golden nuggets of wisdom and direction about how to live a good life, and to make positive changes in the world around you.
Yeah.
So, Daniel?
This was a surprise to me, because I didn't start out writing this book. I started out writing another book because I'm getting older and I wanted to leave a legacy to the world of who I was. And I watched so many people my age finished with their work that they were doing and just sort of stop, as if life had ended when their job ended. And they retired and maybe played golf and maybe, you know, sat around and maybe got bored and maybe were happy. But a lot of them lost their creativity. And so I wrote another book called V2, which is what does the second version of your life look like after the first version goes? And I sent it to a friend of mine who said, Danny, this is a wonderful book. The ideas in here are so good, but it's not your book. And I said, what are you talking about? Did somebody else write this? Is it, you know, and they said, no, it's not plagiarized. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you're a storyteller. Why are you writing a self-help book? This doesn't feel at all like you. You don't want to be a teacher. You're not trying to lead people. You just tell stories and people get from those stories something that's so special. Why don't you tell a story? And so I offhandedly and snidely said to her, what do you think I should do, write a fable? And she said, exactly. And I fought her for about a minute and a half until it sunk in on me. The beauty of a story is the story that leaves my mouth is not the one you hear, because the story leaves itself open for people to interpret it in the way they want to interpret it, to hear the things that they need to hear, to feel in the characters a message to them that may or may not have been what I implied. And I sat to write that fable. And as I was writing it, this is so strange. I can't even believe I publicly say this. As I was writing it, I thought it would take me 2-3 months to finish it, because I had done a book for a hotel that was a storybook that it took me about 6 weeks. This was my story. It should be easy. 2.5 years later, I'm struggling with this book that just won't come through me. And my wife I was driving her crazy because I was up at 2:30, 3 in the morning, just sitting, praying, meditating, trying to understand what the heck is going on. Why can't this story come through me? And finally, I said, I'm talking too much. I just need to ask this book a question. I need to ask the book, what is it trying to say to me? And one by one, the characters in the book, these are characters that I created. They were semi-based on my life, but it wasn't the real life people that came to me. They were the actual characters in the book. They came to me and said, one by one, we don't want to say what you're telling us, what you're writing us to say. We want you to listen to what we want to say and just write that. Like you're not writing what we want you to say, so we can't let you say it. Now, these are characters in a book. I mean, even as I say it now, it sounds crazy. How do characters in a book speak to you? Especially characters that I made up, right? So I said, what the heck are you talking about? They said, just listen. You're talking, just listen to us. And as I sat and listened to them, within 2 months, the book was finished.
Oh, that's amazing.
And what I saw in that is one of the big messages of the book is everything in this world speaks to us. Our jobs speak to us. Our family situation is speaking to us. The people that we meet that we don't even say hello to are speaking to us if we would only listen, but we've forgotten the beautiful art of listening.
I love how the central tenet of the book is like you say, listening.
Yeah.
But I also think it's and it you say that in your at the end of the book, it's about connectivity.
Yes.
So yeah, you know, people are speaking to us, things are speaking to us, events are speaking to us, history speaks to us.
Absolutely.
And you're right, we don't listen because we are so wrapped up in, you know, our daily stresses, our jobs, you know, what's the next thing that we're going to do, the next dinner we're going to go to.
Yes.
That we lose out on the deeper meaning of life.
Yeah.
And I love how that's encapsulated in the book. Um,
Thank you.
and I also love how so in the book you talk about a couple, I don't know how many, but there are a couple of archetypes
Archetypes, yeah.
um, um, of people, right, or characters, as you say that represent a particular way of life or a particular way of thinking.
Yeah.
So one of the characters that spoke out to me was I'm trying to remember the father, right? Most father obviously
Yeah.
spoke to me
Yes.
in a really deep way um, that brought a lot of tears, and I had mentioned that because we lost a really close family friend about 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
so
I'm
of
sorry.
course uh,
I'm
yeah,
so sorry. I said
thank you. But when I first read the book, that spoke to me, and that really drew me in. But as I was going through the book, I like the part about I think it was the mirror maker,
yes.
right? Who says, um, the hardest thing to see is what's right in front of you.
Yes. Yes.
And what's in front of you is your purpose, and you need to fulfill your purpose in the world, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's so true that, especially for highly ambitious people, like I think most of my audience uh, is,
Yes.
um, we we tend to chase the degree, and the next career move, and the next job, and the bigger house and the bigger car.
Yeah.
That we sometimes fail to see that that's not the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, I would reframe that just a tiny little bit from what I've seen in my life.
Okay.
Sometimes it is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when it no longer becomes the most important thing, it's important to be open to see that it no longer is the most important thing, and not just to continue to do what you've always done. Because when it turns into that moment, if it turns into that moment, sometimes it will never turn into that moment. Sometimes by living that life, that is what fulfills people beyond anything that they could ever imagine. And there's nothing wrong in anything. It's all beautiful. It just comes down to whether what we're doing lights us up inside. Whether we wake up in the morning at 3:30 in the morning, not at 7 o'clock with the snooze going off again. We wake up at 3:30 because we can't wait to do the thing we're doing, and we want to start it at that moment because we're so on fire with what we're doing, and intoxicates us. If people are like that, God, go out, make money, go out, help people, go out, run businesses, go out, create. But sometimes people were not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we feel stuck in the confines of the life that we have, thinking that we have to live a certain life because other people want us to live that life.
Yeah. The proverbial hamster's wheel.
Yes, yes. And when we stop living the life that we desire for the life that we think other people want us to live, that's a sign to us to sit for a minute and say, what would it look like if I could see what's right in front of me? Because what's right in front of me is I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I crowd that space out with all these things that say, well, I should be happy because I'm making a lot of money. I should be happy because my parents are happy with what I'm doing. I should be happy because I have prestige in the community that I'm in. I should be happy because I have a nice family. I should be happy, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not happy. And that's only if you're not happy. If you're happy, like celebrate. Like I can't wait to sit with you and talk of your happiness. But do we have the courage to see ourselves when we're not happy and make that change?
And I think many times the answer is no.
Yeah.
Which is why I went to one of the best schools in the U.S.
Yeah.
And where the
Tell
school
people
is.
what that is, so that I mean that is celebrate a moment and enjoy that you did
Oh,
that.
thank you. But there is a high school, and this is a high school, where kids are kids, right?
Yep.
But surprisingly, that high school in this prestigious, highly affluent part of the United States has one of the highest suicide rates for
Yes.
kids.
Yep.
Because they cannot withstand the pressure that their parents who work in this affluent university put on them.
Yep.
And they have all these expectations to live up to, right? And you need to get into the best school and have the top SAT scores.
Yeah.
And be in, the best AP classes.
Yeah.
And so again, we're talking about that, the proverbial hamster's wheel, where you're just doing things to please everyone and you're so unhappy inside that.
So how would life look if we could please everyone while at the same time pleasing ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not mutually exclusive.
No.
So many times we draw this thing of, oh my God, I'm under the stress of doing what, but when we're quiet enough to sit with it, that's sometimes the world. I mean, that world is what most of the world wants. And when we're given the opportunity to have what most of the world wants, look, I was given an opportunity to run $1 billion business. That's the opportunity every person dreams of. That's like the Alice in Wonderland story,
Yeah,
or what, you know what I mean? It's like the rags to riches. We were in a lower middle class, and now I'm suddenly have this opportunity to do it. It's what every single person wants. But we have to ask ourselves, is that what I want?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, in the years between then and now, sometimes I think, well, God, it would have been so easy if I just would have done that. I mean, it would have been hard. I would have had stress. But like financially, my world would have been complete. I could do so many things for the world. I could do so many things for my family. I could have had so many opportunities to do the things that I'm doing now with more affluence, with more power, with more money, with more contribution. It just wasn't my way.
Mm-hmm.
And to have the courage to stand up to my uncle and say, 99.999% of the people would have run to this. Just my rotten luck. I'm the 0.000000001. I mean, and I thank you so much for this offer. He didn't hear it. He just was hurt. He just thought I was making stupid decisions. And they excommunicated me and said, if you make that decision, we can have nothing to do with you anymore. I said, I'm so thankful for the time that you took me in. You didn't have to do that. And I completely understand. And please, I never meant to hurt your feelings, but I can't live that life. That's your life. That's not my life. Let me find my way of living my life. And it takes courage because we're so driven by the world to be this person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said the book was a surprise to me, because I was a bit of a snob. I wasn't the type of person that sat with the ordinary people, that sat on street corners with the homeless. I wasn't the type of person that I was careful about the vibration and the energy level of the people that I hung out with. I wanted there to be a certain sense of refinement. But it was in that book, in that story, that I saw there's not one person in the world that doesn't have that energy and that refinement if I allow them to share that with me. Every single being, every single job, pushing a broom. The Bhagavad Gita from India says there's no more dignity in being a king than in pushing a broom. If you do what you do for the love of God, the dignity is in how we do what we do, not in what we do. How much we love in the work that we do, how much we serve other people in the work that we do, how much we have the integrity of our being in all that we do. So I know some of the people that listen to this podcast are business people. So I want to ask you not to change what you're doing, but take a look at how you're doing what you're doing. The how you're doing is all that needs to change.
And I love it. I love what you just said, because it's very sad that you lost the relationship with your uncle after you made your decision.
Yes.
But if we were to think about being connected with one another, a different way that your uncle could handle the situation would be to say, maybe, I love you so much that I can respect that.
Yeah.
And
To his credit, they excommunicated me and then tried to help me. Like when I was in the seminary, they said, "Okay, I will help you now. Come back. You can run the congregation in our little town, and
that's so sweet.
we'll give you the country club membership. We'll give you a big salary. We'll give you
Yes.
we'll give you all the money you need. We'll buy you a house here." So they tried in numerous occasions, and they were doing the best they could.
Yeah.
I mean, and they didn't know what to say, because people, I find this often with people that have a lot of money. It doesn't mean it's always. It often is different than always. They believe their money, their affluence, the fact that people want what they have, that they can command people to do what they want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when people don't care about that, when people don't idolize them for that, when people don't say, I want you to leave and give me all your money, or I want something from you, when people don't want anything from them, they don't really know what to do. Mm-hmm. Because they're not comfortable in that situation, because everybody they know. I remember being at a party with my uncle, and I said, there's 300 people here, people who love you. What? That must feel so good. And he said, these people don't love me, Danny. If tomorrow I lost everything I had, none of them would be here. They love me for what I might be able to do for them.
And that's true to a very large extent.
And so when I saw that, I said, why would you want to give me that present? Why would you want to give me the gift of thinking that people don't like me for myself? They like me for what I can do for them. But when I worked for Hay House, I saw the same thing. The people that I interacted with me loved me because what I could do for them. When I went back to them after I left Hay House and said, this is something I'm doing, would you be willing to help me? A handful of them said yes, but most of them turned their back and said, why? There's nothing you can do for us anymore.
And that's a very sad state of affairs. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
And it's very sad that society has come to that level.
So what that did is it motivated me when I realized that, to say, how often am I reaching a hand down to the people that I can lift up? Mm-hmm. When I walk by a homeless person, why don't I just sit with him and see what he needs? Instead of walking by and you'll see people. I remember seeing this guy in a wheelchair with no legs, with a sign that says, please help, I can't get a job because I don't have any legs. And I watched people just walk by him. And I heard people say, well, he'll just use the money for alcohol. The guy doesn't have any legs. He's asked, how more vulnerable can you be to say, help me put food on for my family or for myself? And so I sat with him. I said, what do you need? And he said, no money you could give me would mean more than the fact that you spent 5 minutes sitting here talking to me. I just need to be seen and heard. And that's the goal of what I'm trying to do, because I'm about to travel around the world with this thought of taking the Mosaic, the simplicity of what this ordinary people of the Mosaic taught me. That everybody, when you take a moment to hear their story, looks completely different than the person you first approach. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget that guy on the wheelchair with no legs. He's my brother. I will do anything I possibly can to further his story, to further his message by talking to when I see people. And by even more than that, by listening to others like him. And you don't have to be without legs to not have a voice. Most of us feel unheard. The other day, my wife said, "You don't listen to me, Danny." And I said, "Oh my God, here I am. I'm going out in the world to listen." And she doesn't feel I listen to her,
Mm-hmm.
right? My kids say, they at school, they don't have any idea. They don't care what we think. They're just trying to push us as round pegs into a square hole.
Yeah.
They're not interested in. So it doesn't matter. It's not the downtrodden that don't have a voice. It's all of us. We don't even listen to our own self.
And
We
I
have an
think
inner voice we don't hear.
all of us want to be listened to. I think that it's an innate need to be heard.
Yes.
You know, and when you say that, I thought about I have a 5-year-old little girl. You know, and sometimes when my husband and I are having a conversation, she goes, "Excuse me, excuse me." You know, I look at her, and even at that young of an age, you know,
Yeah.
she wants to be seen, she wants to be heard, she wants to be acknowledged, validated. And I think it's something that people need.
100 billion%. I agree with you. I have the honor of having a developmentally delayed daughter.
Mhm.
She's 30 years old now. For about 15 years, she went through this thing where she would speak to me, and she can't speak like you and I. So it's hard for people to understand. I somehow, most of the time, understand what she says. But sometimes she would speak to me and I just couldn't understand it. And when she would do that, and I didn't understand it, she would say it louder. So she would yell it. But it wasn't the volume most times that got it, that I didn't understand. It was the clarity, because she speaks like someone who's had a stroke or something. She's developmentally delayed, so she doesn't make the right movements with her tongue. And sometimes in her screaming, she'd actually said it a little differently, and I understood it. So to her credit, sometimes she found a way through yelling it that I got the message. But most of the time I didn't. And when she would say it and I didn't understand it, and scream it and I didn't understand it, then she would tantrum. And in tantruming, I never understood it, because then I was just trying to deal with, we could have been in a restaurant, we could be walking down the town, we could be at people's homes, we could have guests at our home, she could just be me and her and just screaming. And I just wanted to get her comfortable and get it to an end. And when I didn't hear her then she would try and attack me. She would run at me. She would try to rip my shirt or bite me, because she was so frustrated, because I was the only person that most of the time understood her. 15 years that happened 4, 5, 10, 15 times a day. It literally drove me crazy. Most of the white hair that you see on my face and my hair came as a result of those moments. Finally, after 15 years, I said to her, "Elisa, you know how desperately and how much I love you and how much I want to understand you. Will you please try and say it in a different way, because I can't understand your words?" From the midst of her screaming, she got this big Buddha-esque like smile on her face. And she said, "I am, Daddy." And I said, "What are you talking about you are? How are you talking to me?" And she put her finger to the side of her head. And I said, "What the heck are you talking about? Are you putting thoughts into my head?" I mean, sometimes I heard that, but I didn't want to trust it. "Is that what you're really doing?" And she started laughing hysterically. I mean, we felt like we were laughing for 2 months. It was probably only 2 or 3 minutes, but it was that contagious laugh that as soon as one of us stopped, the other started again, and we just couldn't stop laughing. We had finally found the way to communicate when no other communication was happening. In retrospect, I look back on those moments, and I realize that every single person I meet, every single person I work with, no matter where they work, no matter what part of the sector of society they're in, acts in exactly the same way. When they speak and they don't get heard, they yell. When they yell and they don't get heard, they create a scene. When they create a scene and they don't get heard, they destroy something. It could be a building, it could be a marriage, it could be a business, it could be the reputation of another person. We all do it. We have to learn how to listen, because if we would just listen when people talk to us, They don't need to yell. As soon as I sit with anybody and I say, tell me what you want to say, you don't have to yell. Just tell it to me and I'll listen to you. You don't need to yell or attack or destroy or create a scene. I'm here to listen to you. Now I'll test that courage that I have, because I want to be able to travel the world and I want to be able to go to where white supremacists sit. And do I have the courage to love them and let them speak to me? Do I have the courage to walk into conflict and riot situations and sit with people? Like Tyson said it well, you have no idea what you have until you get punched in the face for the first time, right? And we'll see. But that's where my fears are. Am I going to be big enough? Will I be able to love enough that I can go into those situations and just say, I'm here to listen to you. You don't have to yell. And when we can't hear the words that someone is saying, find another way, like my daughter. Just how can you say it differently that I can understand it?
And there are different ways of communicating without saying a word, right? So like a smile, a gesture, a nod of the head, So there are so many different ways to communicate without using words. Music communicates, art
100%.
communicates.
Yeah. And let's just, if you don't mind, I'm going to be personal with you for a minute, because when we first had our conversation about whether it would be good for me to come on the podcast, you didn't have to say a word. I immediately loved you.
Oh, thank you.
Right? And so how is that possible? We didn't know each other. 3 minutes before we sat on the phone, we didn't even know each other existed. But there is something that happens when we just connect to each other that allows us to, some of my best friends have wacky belief systems. I would never believe what they say, what they believe. But they don't ask me to agree with them. Nobody's ever asked me to agree with what they're saying. All they're asking me to do is listen to them and hear them, acknowledge them and validate them and love and accept them.
And I think that's the one of the beauty about your book. And I love your book. It's beautifully written. It was such a pleasure to read. It was easy to read, but it was like reading poetry.
Thank you.
But the beautiful thing about the book is the emphasis that at the end of the day, everything is connected in one way or another.
Yeah.
And I loved how you ended the book with Mo seeing how everyone is interconnected, right? His dad, his mom, the wise man, the flower girl.
Yeah.
And it's about living a life where if you truly listen, and if you were directed by something deeper than the externalities, right?
Yes.
I like to talk to my audience about the heart center, but that's what the book really is. It's kind of like a tapestry for how to live in a way that I wouldn't say ignores the rest of the world, but it's true to yourself, right? You hear, which is why I think, and you say this in the book as well, that each person who reads the book takes away something different.
Yes. Yeah.
And it depends on when you read the book, different parts would speak to you.
And here's something that most people don't say. If you believe in a world where everything speaks to you, then in the book that was written through me by these characters, it isn't only the words that speak. It's the space between the words that say something. Mm-hmm. And that space between the words is what you give value. Is the meanings that you give to the words. Is your own involvement in the book. It's the quiet moment of reflection that you have because a certain sentence touched you. It's what comes to you from those moments. My work to travel around the world and literally follow in the footsteps of Mo didn't come because that's what the story asked me to do. It came because the space between those words, as soon as I finished the book, said it's time for you to go out and be Mo. You already wrote what was. Now write what's coming. Now live what's coming. And when we have the courage to see the way we see the world is just that. It's just the way we see the world. It isn't what the world is. It's just the way we happen to see it. And the more perspectives we get, like imagine how your business would look if you invited the people that work with you in your business, from the janitor to the CEO, to come together and make decisions around what the company might want to do. To make decisions, from simple decisions of where you should have your Christmas party, to what color your product should be, to what should be your tagline, to how do you want to affect people in the way you treat them? How do you want to listen to your customers? How do you want to listen to each other? How do you want to listen to yourselves? Like, what would happen if we actually were a culture of people in our business that was completely connected? And when I say completely connected, I don't mean that we have to agree on everything.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of a mosaic is sometimes the connection only is one corner to one corner, that we agree only on the smallest possible thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we live from that place of connection rather than from the place where we don't agree. There's so many superficial things that we don't agree on. You're this beautiful woman sitting in the South. I'm this old man sitting in California. How can you say we're the same? And yet, when you feel our energy connection, there's something that's the same there. Doesn't matter what you look like, or how old you are, or how young you are, or what religion you believe in, or what color your skin is, or what color mine is, or what border we live behind. There's a connection in the energy that we feel for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that connection and that energy will just continue to grow. And it'll connect us to more people who feel this way, and we'll help each other, and we'll build these things together, and we'll create opportunities that we would never have if we said, oh, she's not like me. I can't do anything with her. Mm-hmm. She's too smart. I'm not that smart. She lives over there. She's not going to be interested in talking to me. What happens when we sit with the lowest of the low and allow them to be the highest of the high? What would we hear them say? What could they tell us about our business that we never ever saw before?
Mm-hmm.
That's called innovation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead of living in this vertical world where one person leads everybody, why not live in a mosaic world where all of the pieces coming together is what leads us together?
That
would
so
change
beautiful.
everything.
Beautiful. I know that to you, the mosaic is not only the book, right? It's a way of living.
Yes.
And I know that you talk about the four
practices.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I love it. We live in the most connected time the world has ever known, disconnectedly. Somehow, with the opportunities that we have to be connected all around the world, we know in 13 seconds what's happened 10,000 miles away. But we don't know the name of our next door neighbor. And so when I looked at what is connection really, most people think this is connection. I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, we're having a connection. But there are 3 steps before that have to happen for us to have real connection. If I'm not connected to myself, if I have fear, then what I end up doing is I spend most of my day, in the past more than now, knocking myself down, telling myself I can't do that, beating myself up, saying you're not smart enough. So literally, I'm hitting myself like this. So I have to protect myself from my own assault. So in order to do that, I build a silo around myself, and that silo is 2 or 3 millimeters from my face and my body. I don't know where I'm going to hit myself, so it goes from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. Well, if I'm in that silo, if I'm living in a walled off reality, what connection can I have with you? Mm-hmm. What most people connect to is your wall and my wall connect. And then we wonder why we don't feel intimacy. We wonder why we don't feel real connection. We wonder why we don't feel like we feel another person. When I have the courage to be kind to myself, the first practice, be kind to yourself. When I have the courage to be kind to myself, if I'm no longer hitting myself, I no longer need the wall to protect me from hitting myself. So I can bring that wall down. Now, then I might see you and say, whoa, wow, look at her. I'm scared. Like, what's going to happen when I meet her? Like, she's this beautiful, smart person, and I'm not good enough to meet her. How am I, what am I going to do? But I still walk towards you. And if I notice my walls there, I can say to you, if I promise not to hurt you, can we try to take brick by brick down this one wall that's between us? And let's just go brick by brick, because what might happen is when we feel uncomfortable, let's stop. Like if you don't feel comfortable opening up the next brick, let's just stop and be where we are. Maybe we'll feel comfortable enough to take the whole wall down because we'll trust each other enough. When we do that, suddenly my whole world's just grown. It's grown from this little world that I was living in to now the connection to you. And now when I connect to you, everything that you know, everything that you have, everything that you want, I can help you create. And everything that I want and everything that I know and everything that I am, I can give to you and you can give that back to me. And suddenly all the connections you have become all the connections I have with, some trust factors being built into that, right? Mm-hmm. And our worlds grow. And so the second practice is to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Because when we're vulnerable, that allows us to open up and experience that experience. And that creates a connection. First is the connection to self. Another one is, then the next one is connection to source. Like if I understand there's something bigger here, what does that source want me to do? It doesn't want me to isolate myself and just be alone. I was created here for a reason. So now I start to think, what am I doing here in this world? And then the third practice is do what you came here to do. Mm-hmm. Find your purpose. Yeah. Because there's so many people, when I ask them, what are you here to do? They say, I don't know. Right? And if someone says, I don't know, if you don't know where you're going, every road will take you there. You don't get into your car. Look, even our cars have it in. We have built-in GPS systems. If we don't have them in our cars, we have them in our phones. We put the destination we want to go, and the phone or the car tells us exactly where to go. It's the same thing in our life. Once we know what our destination is, once we know what our purpose is, we just put it in our human operating system, and our operating system will guide us there. But when we don't know where we go, every road comes, oh, that looks like a nice road. Let's take that one. Oh, maybe it's over there, or maybe we'll find our way there. Like there's no absolutes in this. We might find our way. And we also might find something that's a complete distraction that looks great, that isn't our purpose at all, that keeps us for our whole life. But can you imagine when people that are open and kind, when people are vulnerable and purposeful, and when those people come together with each other, which is the fourth practice, mm-hmm. which is build your mosaic, when you are now a community of kind, purposeful, open, vulnerable people that come together, what isn't possible? Everything becomes possible because connected, we're stronger than we are on our own. We were meant to be together. We were meant to do this stuff together. We were meant to help each other. We weren't meant to try and figure it out on our own. We were interconnected. If we were meant to do it alone, we would have been one on mountaintops where nobody was around us. We were put into this world because we're a part of this world. Coming from a man who was a monk for 10 years, who was in this world and was on a mountaintop for 10 years, isolated, I finally realized, well, that's not why I was here. I would pray for the world. I would try and help the world, but I'm here in this world. I'm meant to walk amongst people and let people walk amongst me.
That's amazing.
So let's turn it for a minute to business. There are so many CEOs of companies that I work with who say to me, I feel so alone. It's lonely at the top. Mm-hmm. Why? In the world that I just described, that's not a lonely world.
No.
Right? But we put ourselves above, we isolate, we become monastics of our own business. We live in our own little silo thinking we can't let people in, we can't let our company see us as we are. There's so many people that are well-known people that I know that have one persona to the public and another persona to their family or friends. Why? I'm not smart enough to remember who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, who was I with this person, right?
And were you in that group? And oh my God, what would happen? Like, just why can't we just be ourselves? What we are is so much more beautiful than the painting we put on the silo to make people think we're that person. Who we are is magnificent. Who you are is magnificent. Let's hold each other and help each other see. I have one more little rant. Can I go on it?
Yes.
We live in a time now where everybody's trying to be extraordinary, where everybody's trying to have superpowers, where everybody's trying to be, some world-class hero. The Mosaic taught me that's all BS.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I like the phrase, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because the Mosaic is all about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what it taught me is that, like, we believe ordinary is bad. When I ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me where ordinary is. I say, oh God, 1 or 2 even. I mean, not even 2, 1. I say, okay, where's extraordinary on that same scale? Oh, 10, 15, 20. So I say to them, this is maybe just a thing in the English language. But if ordinary is something you don't want to be, why do you want to be extra of something you don't want to be? And what the Mosaic taught me is that extraordinary things happen when extraordinaries come together. Like, what could be more beautiful than a sunrise? Mm-hmm. It happens every single day, and we know the time it's going to happen. There is nothing more ordinary than that. What could be more beautiful than watching the spring buds appear on a tree after winter? It happens every season. There's nothing more ordinary than that. Where did we come to believe that ordinary is bad and we have to be extraordinary? So we hold this thing up, this bar up that is unattainable. And then we loathe ourselves because we can't sustain that extraordinariness.
Yeah.
Extraordinary things happen when extraordinaries come together.
I love that.
That's what happens.
And everything that we've talked about all comes down to the common theme throughout your work, whether it's your book, yeah. The work that you're doing with companies, and I think you work with creatives as well.
Yes. Yes.
It's connectivity. That's the message that I see throughout everything that's in your website and everything. And I think that's an excellent philosophy for life, especially when you're welcome, especially when, and you're right, the internet has connected us in ways we could not have foreseen
Yeah.
before, you know.
We would never be talking without it.
Right.
Right. So this beautiful relationship that's just developing, this beautiful opportunity for me to be on your podcast would never happen without the connectivity of the internet.
Exactly. Yeah, but you're also right in that we live in such a disconnected world.
Yeah.
But I'm proud to say that I know the names of my neighbors.
That's great. That's
You know, whenever we see that, you know, we go, hey, Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson.
yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's true that that people build walls. We fear each other, you know.
Yeah.
There is a lack of trust
Yeah.
that's so pervasive.
Yeah. So one of the big things that I work with companies, people, families, organizations on is there's a simple equation. Our thoughts create our words.
Mm-hmm.
Our words tell our stories, and our stories create our life. And if we're unhappy with any part of that, all we have to do is change any part of that. And so what the Mosaic is really about to me, underneath all of it, what the book that I wrote is really gave to me, is it gave to me a shift in perspective. It allowed me to see something in a different way. It allowed me to see a disconnected world through the eyes of a connected person. But as long as we see through the eyes of a disconnected person,
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts will create the words that we say. Our words that we say will tell a story of disconnectedness. Our disconnected stories will create a life where we don't feel as a CEO of a company we can mix with the people that we work with. What would happen if we just shifted our perspective? When we change the way we see the world,
Mm-hmm.
the world we see changes.
Beautiful.
And it's just that simple. So how in business could you change the way you see your world? How in business could you change the way you see the people that are in your business? How in business could you change the way you see your customers and your employees? How in business could you change the way you look at your finances? How in business could you change the way you want to impact the world? Change the way you see the way you want to impact the world? If you think, like most people think, I don't have enough to do that. I remember when I came to Hay House, they were doing $3 million a year in sales. And I said to them, I was director of business development. I said, look, my goal is to get everybody that publishes a self-help book to publish here. And the man who was running the company, great man, beautiful man, fabulous guy, said, Danny, we can't afford them. They're getting $1 million advances with other places. And I said, never's a long time. We certainly can find a way to get those people. And so I created something that had never been created before. I created these card decks. And I went to them and I said, we're going to make a new form of Cliff Notes. We're going to take the top 50 thoughts that you have. We're going to put them in little decks. We're going to make boxes that are beautiful. We're going to make cards that are beautiful. We'll even do it for you. Would you be willing to have us publish those? And they said, well, we have a publishing deal with our 8 places where we have to offer them the next thing. I said, offer it to them. They don't do card decks. It's a crazy idea. Nobody's going to want to do it. The bookstores weren't carrying it. We had to fight to get them in. Over a period of time, those card decks outsold their New York Times best-selling books 10 times to 1. They came to us and said, why wouldn't we publish our books? You did something for us look what you did, and it's outselling a New York Times best-selling book 10 times. And I said, well, the reason is you're getting $1 million, and we didn't think we could afford to give you that. But I bet we could find another way to get you the money you need. If it might not be in one lump sum, but we'll help you together, and we'll create that together. Would you be willing to do that? And one by one, they started to come. And now every self-help author wants to be at Hay House because it has all the top self-help authors. But everybody believes they don't have enough to make what they want to have happen. But that's only an excuse to not look for the way to make it happen. And when we see our life differently, suddenly we see we have all that we need is right in front of us. It's just right there if we just let go of the thought that we don't. Make sense?
You know, completely. I love that. I love that. I'm trying to digest that. So for our audience, if they want to find you, they can get on your website.
Yes.
Right? And get
I have two.
connected with
I
you.
have two websites. One is danielbrucelevin.com,
Okay.
and you'll put that in the show notes.
Yes, I will.
The other one is the mosaiconline.com. And
Okay.
both of them explain different aspects of the work that I'm doing.
Okay.
But all my social media links are there. All that's there. So just
Which
go
is
there.
great.
Emails there. They can contact me.
Yes.
I would love to hear from people what they think.
Yes, and for those of us who are interested in this world trip that's coming up, we can get connected with you on social media, like maybe Facebook, and follow that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or go onto my contact sheet on my website and say, I'm interested in helping you with the world tour. I'm interested in having you come and speak at this place. I'm interested in housing you up. I'm interested in sitting with you for a coffee. Like whatever. I want nothing from people but what they feel to give, because I believe that together we can solve these problems that exist in the world that we can't solve individually.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And so, so I'm hoping that through this podcast, people will reach out to you.
Thank you.
You know, as you embark on this huge journey, you
Yes.
know, and as you know, you're most welcome to the South.
I love you.
And we would be happy to host you. There is a great bookstore in Jackson, Lemuria Bookstore, that I think you can bring the Mosaic there.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and for the rest of our audience, you know, I'm hoping that they will reach out to you as you go on this journey.
Please. And what I want people to know, this world is such a beautiful place. When we decide to see its beauty rather than its differences, when we decide to help each other rather than pick at each other, when we decide to be there and just listen to one another, who knows what's possible? But I do know together we're better. Together we're stronger. Together we can do more than we ever could possibly do on our own. It's time for us to come together and help each other. And that isn't just you helping me. It's me helping you. It's all of us.
Beautiful.
It's all of us doing whatever we can do to help each other have the life we want.
Oh my goodness, that is such a beautiful message, and it's the perfect way to sum up this conversation. I want to thank you so much, so much for your time, for sharing so much of yourself, and it's been a pleasure. I'm sure my audience will love you.
Thank you.
And again,
as I said to you the first moment I met you, it's my honor. Thank you.
Thank you.